All right, folks, it's time for the online dinner party. And of course, we always have amazing guests and amazing conversations and all along those lines. So we're going to see what we've got going on in this particular case. I've got a guest coming in from Wisconsin, a area that I definitely have some connections to, and all along those lines, since I am a Marquette graduate, a proud Marquette graduate, and definitely went there to school in Wisconsin, in Milwaukee, and all along those lines. And remember those days back in the early 80s when I was attending college and all along that kind of way. So I definitely have great memories of that town. Even remember going to some Brewers games and he decided out how we're doing this year. I know that in the past we've definitely been in contention, and I think we're still in contention. And all along those lines, even saw an Up with People concert at one of the stadium games there and everything. I don't think it was actually a game. I think it was just Up with People coming to perform and all along those lines. And I think I did go to maybe a game or two while I was there in that particular area. And of course, we have minor league baseball here since I'm in Durham, North Carolina, the home of the Durham Bulls, and all along those lines, and the inspiration for the movie Bull Durham. So definitely there is some baseball connections. And I remember one of the stories that I remember when I was in Milwaukee was going to cover a museum that had a big bat collection. I don't know if they still got that big bat collection or not, but there was a big bat collection that was there, and doing some other stories, even doing some part-time reporting as a intern at the Sherman Park News, which is a suburb of Milwaukee, and all along those lines. I want to bring in Matt and hear some of the things he's got going on in his life and all along those lines, because he's definitely been through some interesting times and is trying to help some of our kids. And I know that one of the things I talked to him about when I was reaching out to him was that my younger brother works with at-risk youth here in North Carolina, and he's been working with them for a number of years when he's not taking, because he is a member of the Bull City Slingers, actually the founder, co-founder of the Bull City Slingers, which is all, but he's worked with Proud and a number of kids out of trouble that are in different kinds of situations, whether that's drugs, whether that's a number of other things in that space. I'll bring in Matt, see how he's doing and how things are going there in Wisconsin and all along those lines. So you've been doing a lot of work to help a couple of times as well. But like I said, I mean, for a while, he was one of those people that I think took a while to figure out what he wanted to be when he grew up, because he definitely worked in some other fields as well. But now he's definitely doing work with our at-risk youth, and has been doing that for a number of years, probably a decade or so.
Yes, so I'm very grateful being a part of the podcast, and thank you all for who is listening and watching. My name's Matthew Stafford, not the Rams quarterback.
Right.
Yeah, funny story. I'm a uh, I love the Packers. I
Mhm.
bleed green and gold. And one of my friends gave me a Stafford jersey when he was a Lions quarterback.
Right.
Well, something happened to that jersey, and I'm pretty sure the trash collector really liked it. Um, but I am not him by no means. I oh man, I wish he was a Packer. I tell you that. Um, so I grew up in a foster family.
Mhm.
I'm the seventh of my family. My biological parents were mentally and physically disabled, and I grew up knowing that they wanted to harm me and my
Mhm.
brother. So my biological mother had the good sense of uh, putting us into the system. And then my family that fostered me and my brother, they wanted to adopt, but they got us, and we were permanently placed. We were still foster kids, but it was just slightly under adoption. So what was going on is, I'm I'm struggling between who's my family, what to believe. My father, Vincent James Cunninglero, was my rock. He was the guy that just held everything together in my eyes. This may upset some of my family, and they may think that it's not the truth. But I'm a daddy's boy through and through. I
Right.
was when I was a kid. I am now. So I'm a daddy's boy, and it shows because I named my outreach after him. So I had 7 deaths in 6 years growing up in my foster family. Started with my sister and her husband died in a car crash. Then I
Right.
had a death every year afterwards. I was involved in many different things growing up, in different programs, different organizations, but I was a wild child. As the seventh of my family and the youngest, if you told me, Matt, jump, I'd sit down.
Wow.
So yeah, I was not one to be told. The only person that could have controlled me passed away when I was 15.
Oh, wow.
So yes. So while I was growing through different circumstances, I never truly knew where I belonged.
Hmm.
Um, my best friend in junior high and high school were drug dealers. I did quite a lot of legal things, and uh, never true. It was semi harmless. Breaking into things and doing things that you know boys will do if they're left up to their own devices. And throughout the years, I was in a previous teen mentoring youth outreach, and I spent 13 years or 15, about 15 years in the previous outreach. After that dissolved, I was kind of wavering about what I was supposed to do. And then I was convinced to start a nonprofit. So at 307 East Main Street, actually a building I used to break into as a
Wow.
teenager, now I have an opportunity to buy the building, remodel it, and build a counseling and mentoring center. Uh, so I was actually practically illiterate my whole entire life until I was 28.
Wow. Was it a store when you were breaking into it, or was it another kind of business and everything like that? So it's
It
a,
No, it was an abandoned building at
okay.
that point. It's a Dr. Moore built it in 1877 as a homeopathic hospital. He served people from the Civil War. His wife's family actually helped pioneer Wisconsin.
Oh, wow. That's amazing and everything.
Yes,
You
yes.
mentioned that you were a foster parent, I mean, a foster child and everything. What is your take on the foster system now? Because as I mentioned, no, I didn't mention this time, but I mentioned it on other shows. My brother actually has had foster kids. He's got his own, my two nephews, don't have any kids of my own, but he's got his uh, two biological kids, but he's also fostered a number of kids in different programs and everything like that. And sometimes they were cooperative, sometimes they weren't cooperative. So and I imagine that's with any foster program and everything like that. I was just wondering your take on the foster system as it exists in the United States.
It's all broken. All systems are broken, private and public systems. No
Mhm.
system is perfect. But with the foster system, private or public, they were built to serve a need.
Right.
And, you know, the reason why it becomes broken is because people want the power, and they lose sight of the individual they're trying to help, right?
Mhm.
So uh, I am my outreach is specific to Waukesha County, and even that I understand the Waukesha County system, and it's a lot better than the Milwaukee system. Even that the Milwaukee system is serving a lot of people. It's so much intake, and it's hard to keep track of uh, of the clients, and that's why there's so much. suicide, we're social workers, and
Right.
you know it's very very hard to be a social worker.
And that's one of the things that I know they've been talking about a lot in the news and everything. Because one of the things we're hearing a lot is even during the pandemic and before the pandemic, a lot of our team of other things that are causing people to be concerned and everything like that. So it's one that deals with teenagers. What is your take on that?
So I have to apologize. The signal broke up for a second, but if you could repeat the question because of the signal.
No problem. No, just saying. Because I know the thing I'm hearing from a lot of people is this notion that our teenagers, and that's part of the reason of the increase in gangs, the increase in the trying to find a family.
So I apologize. The signal cracked a couple times, but for what I heard is what's the issues with the teenagers and why are they uh, doing the things they're doing? And I'm going to tell you this: it boils down to morals and the family values, where and how you grew up. A lot of people when they're left to their own devices, will do what they want to do. Um, that's why there's illegal drugs and crime and all the different things. If we're left to our own devices, we're only going to serve our needs. Now, my outreach is built around the kitchen table. I'll tell you a story. When when I was growing up, our back door was always unlocked. Sometimes I'd wake up to a family member sitting sleeping on the couch, or my dad at 4 o'clock in the morning having a cup of coffee with a family member or a friend, and he was a very strong uh, guy. He was an Italian and Native American. He also was a Vietnam vet, so he had very strong family ties. The issue that we're finding through our outreach is the families that have troubled teens or have unique circumstances don't have the family practices that usually happen as a whole traditional family with a mother and a father. And a father, oh my gosh, if you have a mother and a father that are united front, your kids are, so much more successful later in life if they have accountability. But it's truly the household. If if the household has accountability and they have structure, then you have success.
One of the other things that I was wondering about is you mentioned the community space because it was a abandoned building, and I know that in Wisconsin there have been some other abandoned buildings that have been turned into art spaces as well. So, how were you able to get the community to buy into turning this into a youth program space in there in Wisconsin? Because I know even here in Durham, North Carolina, we've had some old warehouses that have been converted to apartments, converted to other businesses. But how were you able to get the community to buy into turning it into a community space for our young people that are quote unquote troubled? And I hate that term.
Yeah, I hate that term too. Um, the only reason why I dislike that term is that everybody's troubled for
Right,
some reason.
right.
And we're wanting to figure out the solution. To answer your question, it's privately owned right now by a wonderful individual, and he bought the building that the city wouldn't tear it down.
Right.
So he saved it from it being torn down, and he didn't know me from Adam, and I used to break into the building when I was a teenager, and it felt like home. I would sit on the sixth step and I would imagine this Victorian building, beautiful and back in its heyday. And I always thought what it would be if it was redone.
Right.
So after a while, I got a hold of Mr. Green, and his last name's Green, and him and I struck up a deal about me fixing the building, building a counseling and mentoring center in there, and with the community, uh, it's hard. The community, uh, a lot of people don't want to accept that they have issues in their family or in around their lifestyle.
Right.
So I am going at it as a very soft approach. I lived these situations. I lived the abuse. I lived the mental uh, the mental disability, going on. After my family members started passing away, I didn't know how to believe in myself. There
Right.
was a man that had an outreach called the Teen Center, and his name was Dean Culver. This
Mhm.
man saved my life with a hug. If
Right.
it wasn't for Dean Culver, I wouldn't be alive today.
Oh, wow.
Now, Dean and I do talk, every couple months, and it is a amazing thing to go back to an original mentor and say how thankful he is. Now I get to have a beer with him, enjoy a more mature relationship, and what I would say the appetite for my outreach is in the neighborhood and
Mhm.
in the Waukesha city. It's very needed, but no one else wants to build it.
Gotcha.
You have to be extremely persistent.
Mhm. No, you definitely have to be persistent. There's no doubt about that and everything like that. There's another term that I know a lot of people use, and it's another term that I don't necessarily like, but I just like to hear your thoughts around when people use the term. And I used it earlier when I was describing my what my brother's done in his work and everything. But what do you say when people use that term at risk and everything? Because even with that notion of trouble, I'd say we're all at risk because we're at risk of survival every day and everything like that. So, what is your take on that term that is sometimes a cliche because a lot of people will use that when they're thinking about troubled youth and they'll use that term at risk.
So at risk, delinquent, uh, you know, multiple other terms. I think we just need to abandon them. But how else are we supposed to label, the children or the families that are are falling through the cracks? So it's become a term that is now stuck, but it's really hard to redefine those families or those individuals. Um, so at risk, gosh, we're all at risk. I'm I have a beautiful family. I just had my daughter. My wife gave birth 12 days ago.
Okay.
I'm at risk of losing everything.
Right.
I could, I could do one stupid move, and my wife could leave me. I could lose my family, but thank God we love each other and we want to build a stable life together. Now, everybody is at risk for something, at any given point.
Right.
I've met multiple individuals that's lost it all and then gained it back.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, and definitely there's been that kind of situation. I kind of alluded to it earlier when we were having the breakup problems in terms of the sound and everything. But what is your take on the teen mental health? Because right now we keep hearing people talking about teens that are engaged in their own world and kind of like absorbed in their own world, whether that's video games, whether that's kind of like being in their own space and everything, and not enough of the community engagement that people nostalgically remember, even though some of that I think might have been more fiction than reality. Because even if you watch Little House on the Prairie or The Waltons or some of those other shows, it wasn't as much sunshine and roses as they might have painted it to be, and all along those lines. Your take on
Well,
where teens are
yeah.
in our situation with teen health?
So teen mental health starts with the family.
Right.
So if you don't have a stable family, you can have a teenager, and it starts real young. Teen mental health, that is, a teen is 13. Well, it really starts when it's 8 or 6 years old. If you don't give stability then, and when they're a real small child, they're going to gain instability while they're developing their own sense of self.
Right.
Now, I'm I'm going to say this is an epidemic,
Mm-hmm.
and teen teen the instability that teenagers have right now is because there's a longing of where am I supposed to be? And it's funny to say, but the traditional family values that was built upon this country is where it's at. If we can build those teens up to understand the values that a traditional mother and a traditional father can give, and brothers and sisters and uncles, and family isn't always blood, but it's
Right.
who you call family and connect as family. Teen mental health has been uh, an epidemic for decades. And it's hard to figure out because it's ever evolving.
Mm-hmm. No, that makes a lot of sense. One of the other shows that we do on the network is one called "Where's the Love?" It's by Stephanie Hockenhall and her son, who is a musician and everything like that. But they talk about the epidemic of bullying, and a lot of that bullying is in the teenage space, but it's also in the adult space as well. So their whole show is around the whole epidemic of bullying and the narcissists that are out there and everything like that. But it's one that deals with these teenagers on a regular basis, because we oftentimes hear, even in the news, people talking about this teen bullying that is going on. So how do you deal with that, and how do you cope with that when you are talking to your teenagers that you're working with and everything like that? Because it does seem like there is a increase in bullying among our teenagers.
Well, bullying and prejudice is a learned behavior.
Right.
And also, it's a cry for help. So if somebody is bullying, they're crying for help because there's insecurities and instability in their life. Uh, I'm gonna preach this 1,000 times over. Someone that's bullying doesn't have a stable home
Right.
or a stable environment, and a stable environment will give security, structure, and accountability. If somebody's bullying someone, there's no accountability for that teenager. Yes, there's victims and there's aggressors on both sides. There needs to be confidence in oneself. If you're the victim, you have to stand up for yourself or learn how to stand up for yourself. If you're the aggressor, you have to have confidence in knowing, wow, I shouldn't be doing this. And I know this is going to be bad, but in the moment, it feels good to do it because you're forgetting about the hurt and the stress in your life, and you're putting it upon someone else.
Yep.
So it's an epidemic of morals.
Yep.
And yeah.
Sounds like it for sure and everything. What do you say to the folks that are, because you are definitely, and I know we've got a show that deals with timeshare, and I oftentimes talk about what she's doing because she's trying to help people get out of bad timeshares, and she is an advocate in that space and you're an advocate in the teen space. How long did it take you to get comfortable with being an advocate? Because even sometimes on that show, she's not always comfortable with being seen as a consumer advocate, because that's what it amounts to, is her being a consumer advocate. So how long did it take for you to be comfortable being an advocate? Because I know even on this show, we've oftentimes talked with different guests about the notion of the imposter syndrome and how sometimes we are afraid to that imposter syndrome and that whole notion of maybe not being as good as we think we are and everything like that. So I just wondered, how long did it take you to be comfortable in your own skin as an advocate?
Well, it actually it took a long time for me to get out of suicidal tendencies. It took me a lot of time to get out of self-deprecation and just self-abuse. I didn't know where I belonged. So when I was in the different nonprofits, I had a lot of imposter syndrome, but it gave me the experience I needed to stand beside the kids and families that we worked with. I've always, I'm gonna say it like this. I've always been in a troubling environment. My biological family is riddled with mental health. My I hate the word foster because I don't believe I was a foster child. My father gave me the title of son. So he never called me by my name, he called me son. So I'll say this sparingly. My foster family, my family that I call family, had 7 deaths in 6 years. So on one hand, okay, am I mentally disabled? I know I belong in my father's family, but why isn't why ain't I adopted? Where's my Conaglero last name? And growing up through the years of instability, I really did feel imposter syndrome. But it's been about 10 years, about 10 years since I started the outreach and developing the program. I actually taught myself how to read and write by developing my nonprofit. I was practically illiterate until I was 28. So I understand where these teens and families are coming from, and where they're like, gosh darn it, I can't do it. If I can't do it, well, how do you think my kids are going to do it? So it took about 7 years to build up my confidence and knowing, no, this is my knowledge, this is my expertise. And for the last 4 years, 3, 4 years, I've really stepped into the confidence that I have as a nonprofit executive director. And I'm trying to start a couple sub businesses to support the individuals that don't have jobs. And who knew a semi illiterate kid that didn't know how to believe in himself is an entrepreneur?
What kind of businesses are you thinking about starting to form? Because I know a good friend of mine, I've known her for a number of years. She is in the autism space. She does a lot of work with autistic folks and things along those lines. So she actually set up in our state capital here in North Carolina a thrift store. And the thrift store is run by a lot of people that are autistic and definitely along those lines, and is also giving support back to people in that space and everything like that. So I was just wondering, and there's another store that I think was working to try to create some gardens and things along those lines. So what kind of businesses are you hoping to form to help our troubled kids that is there in the Wisconsin area where you are?
Yes. So we have an influx of thrift stores in the Milwaukee and Waukesha metro area. So that may not be the best suit for Vincent James Mentoring, but as uh, my experience throughout the years is building and oversight. So uh, auto, a handyman service, a mentoring, lawn maintenance service, it, organizations around those type of lines, because idle hands usually get to go do whatever they want to do,
Right.
and I want to teach multiple things that can keep your hands busy. I eventually want to have a property management company where I can teach people uh, how to buy and sell property.
Yeah.
And wouldn't it be amazing? A teenager that went through mentoring and counseling became an entrepreneur by my outreach. And I do want to state this. My father, everything about my outreach is of my father's character.
Mhm.
My father was a stoic man, uh, a quiet strength. The sarcasm that he had was pure dad jokes, all galore. I think they were hilarious. Um, but what's a good dad joke? They only make the father laugh, you know? Um, but he gave me a hug when I was a kid that I can't even describe the level of security
Mhm.
that he gave. So everything that my hand touches or my fingerprints touch is to give my dad to give that hug, to give my father security. So, if it's the counseling or the mentoring or the handyman service, or I'm starting to write books.
Okay.
It's called The Porch, and whatever I touch, I want to show my father's character.
What is the porch about, and what kind of book is it, and when will it be available to the public and things like that? So when will the book be out, and what is the book about?
Yes, so the Porch books are about wisdom and everyday life uh, uh, wisdom. So, it what's some of the best memories you have with one of your best friends? Well, you might be sitting down on a porch or at a kitchen table or a bonfire. For the people that can enjoy uh, adult beverage, you might be enjoying a beer or a
Right.
scotch or a cigar, um, or enjoying a coffee. You know, it's those type of conversations that you don't realize that are really impactful, that become the most impactful later in life. So, as I stated, I was illiterate most of my life. I think it's hilarious too. I think it's so funny that a semi illiterate individual is writing books. I think it's funny. It's a So we're doing audio and hard copy, and where you listen and read, and you feel like you've just pulled up a chair, where you're listening to the conversation or reading the conversation, and you're gaining the knowledge like you're in that environment.
Mm-hmm.
And you're in.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's interesting you say that and everything, because as you were saying that, I was thinking to myself about that, because my grandmother, when she was living on my mother's side, she had a glider, and a glider is like one of those little sliding swings that might be on somebody's porch. But that was one of the memories that I had, was going back when she was living, sitting on that glider, and maybe reading a book, maybe listening to, like you said, some conversation. I think the freezer was on that same side of the house and everything like that. And I want to say that one of my cousins is getting to have that property, and I think that one of my aunts has the glider in her house now and everything like that. But it's one of those memories that you're talking about, that you just triggers good, positive memories of people having conversations, because you would be in a kind of confined area, because the glider was on a part of the house that was off a side, but it was covered, so you wouldn't be getting the rain elements. And I even remember them splitting the peas and things like that, and putting them in a bottle, or getting them prepared for food, or all along those lines. There might even been some canning going on as well, because they definitely grew up in rural North Carolina, just like there's rural Wisconsin and everything like that. So
Right.
those memories that you're talking about that would be one of those things that I can reflect on, and even playing games of tennis with a late friend who passed away decades ago and everything like that. But I do remember going out and running into Jimmy Robinson and us playing a pickup game of tennis or something like that. So yeah, those kind of memories are the kind that you're reflecting and talking about.
And you know, it highly builds into my outreach. So I have a very different style of counseling and mentoring. Uh, One of the fondest memories that I have growing up is coming home after uh, church or after school, and my dad is cooking spaghetti.
Mm-hmm.
He my aunt is teaching me the family recipe, and it's that notion of I am secure.
Right.
So uh, the counseling and the mentoring is where you walk into the building and you smell home cooked meals. You have a session with one of the staff members, and right after the session, you have a home cooked meal. And
Mm-hmm.
one of the things about the books is you need to enjoy your favorite drink or your favorite meal or something around the lines that brings you centered and brings you into a moment of clarity. And it, it's a totally different way of counseling and also reading or listening to a book. It's bringing the family values center. And you know, some of the best conversations that I've had with my father or any of my friends is with very minimum words.
Right.
And you know, we have you know, we start, we have a couple sips, and sometimes we're sitting there saying nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the best wisdom anybody can have is gaining a mentor without truly knowing you gave that person the responsibility of mentorship. You
Yeah.
know, I say this all the time. You're a leader with or without your permission, and you're
Mm-hmm.
a mentor with or without your permission.
Yeah, that makes sense. Along those same lines and everything like that, because one of the things we talk about quite often here on this show and everything. How important do you think it is to have that balance? Because you kind of alluded to it earlier and everything along those lines. And I know some people try to have that balance between, and you're now a new father and everything, but that balance between work-life balance, but also that connection between your emotional spirit as well as your mental, physical, and I would argue some people would say religious, I would say spiritual, and all along those lines. So how do you maintain keeping balance in your life and everything like that?
Well, with my now blossoming family and my wife, communication.
Mm-hmm.
Communication is key. With any relationship you have, if it's a acquaintance or you know, work life and home life balance, um, I don't really know what that is because my brain's always going.
Right.
So and um, it's communication, knowing when to speed up and to slow down, and knowing when to listen to somebody and saying, "Gosh darn it, you just need to pause and enjoy yourself." You know,
Mm-hmm.
it. I got to thinking about a couple people in my life while you were speaking. Is Pastor Ona, Dean Culver, uh, Keith Braun, uh, mentors galore. There's an individual that I've been following, and I am acquainted with him, but his name's Robert Beast, uh, and he's an assurance guy, but has a lot of stability in life. And one thing that I've come to realize with every person that's been a mentor of mine is the quiet strength that they have, the comfortability that they have in their life. And what that means is knowing how to how to speed up, how to slow down, but having a true routine. Uh, in a strong, structured family, you have a routine, and routines can always be thrown out the window.
Mhm.
But what we're teaching at Vincent James Mentoring and through anything that I touch is a quiet strength, stability, and get yourself on a routine.
Yeah, sometimes, like you said, those routines get disrupted. I remember, like I said, my brother had several foster people that he took care of and that he worked with and everything like that. Then during the time that he was more involved in that space, I don't know that he's involved in it as much as he used to be and everything like that. But I do remember there was a young lady and she had her own ways and kind of like her own ways of being cantankerous and being rebellious, as we know teenagers will be and everything. And I do remember that she brought her boyfriend to a family outing at my mom's house and everything. And mom is still living. Mom turned 83 back in May and everything. So this probably took place maybe 12, 15 years ago and everything like that. But I will never forget what happened because the teenage boy who was not part of the immediate family and everything decided to get a little bit cantankerous, and mom basically called him out and basically said that that old notion of I might not have brought you into this world, but I can take you out of this world and everything. And he the whole ride back, that both the young lady and the man were quiet as church mouses. I never heard them speak because I think that she had put the fear of God in them, if I can use that expression and everything like that.
Yeah.
And
Sometimes you have to have the fear of God put into you. And, you know, some people demonize having a faith.
right,
So I believe in God. My outreach is secular, but I personally believe in God. And so does my family. So does, most of my my close friends have a strong relationship with God. So what you had growing up and what I had growing up, even with the instability that I had stability through the belief in believing in something greater and serving greater. We all have a notion to serve. If it's going to be ourselves, somebody else, or if we're going to have um, a a life devoted to service. So it sometimes you have to have the fear of God. Strike you, but you know that reminds me of a couple stories of when I was in church with my father, and then I do something stupid. My father never uh, laid a hand on me, but he was a very strong man. He was, I think, 6'5" or between 6'3" and 6'5", and big, strong Italian man picked me up by the back of my neck, brought me eye level, and then I quote unquote crapped my pants, and then I knew I did wrong, and then I knew to stop, and that was the fear of God. But what he was trying to say, Matt, is your actions are out of line of your character. And
right,
what the outreach is doing and what your mother was doing was building character
right,
with and she didn't know that individual from Adam, but he got a crash course in character.
right,
And we all have our certain characters, character traits we have, but what's our moral and our character traits that serve individuals in our lives? And that's what we want to focus on and develop with Vincent James Mentoring.
That makes sense. We're going to wrap up shortly. There's something I ask all my guests as we wrap up in the show that usually can be anywhere from an hour to an hour and a half and things along those lines. But as you were going there, I was just thinking to myself, a lot of what you're doing is there based in Wisconsin, but is there opportunities for people, because Pod TV is global, for them to have some of your skill sets and some of your knowledge, say if they're living in Malaysia or if they're living in North Carolina or even in New York or California, where I know we do have listeners at and everything, but we do have listeners in Wisconsin as well. But I just wondered how much can it help, or how much do you work with people that are outside of your immediate region?
Well, that's growing at the moment. I am developing my programming to be online. So I love the Renaissance. So I built my outreach and my programs. It's called the Crest programs. You go through certain questions, you journal, you go through certain uh, events or circumstances to make you rethink or redevelop a thought pattern, and we're building that up right now online. Um, so right now it's more within well, Waukesha and Wisconsin, but in the next 6 months we will be launching a online course for the CREST programs that people can go through.
That makes sense. What do you think is one of the biggest misconceptions people have about Wisconsin? You mentioned being a big time Packer fan, and definitely I went to school with Doc Rivers, who is still the current coach of the Bucks. We'll see what he can do next year and everything. And I know he's had some troubled times, and folks are still trying to figure out if his star athlete will stay there or not, and everything. But I just wondering, what do you think are some of the misconceptions people have of Wisconsin?
That we're actually nice. I mean, which we are. We are nice people, but selfishly, people can be um, very put off, and that we're not that welcoming. Um, on a couple things of Milwaukee, uh, uh, in particular, is that we're polished. Milwaukee has a couple really bad neighborhoods that we're trying, as some developers are trying to, uh, make pretty, build up the homes, put some businesses in, but you could put trillions upon trillions of dollars in any city or any state. But if you don't change the family structure and the morals and the character of the next generation or the current generation, businesses will disappear. Homes will come in a disarray. So, one thing that I would love to see is the selfishness in the hard neighborhoods become more open and less dangerous.
Really?
Milwaukee is famously known as Kill Milwaukee. It's one of the top 10 or top 15 dangerous cities in the United States. It's a in Milwaukee on some areas, and we would love to turn that around. Oh my gosh, would it be beautiful?
Yeah.
But back in the heyday, Milwaukee and was a town and a city that was was a wonderful place to be, and you wanted to build a family there. And Waukesha, 100 years ago, was the resort city of the Midwest,
Mhm.
and we would love to bring more families in, build up the neighborhoods, give more stability and support. One thing I would love to see is almost bringing the crime in Waukesha to zero. I
Uh,
would love to see that. But what it takes is family traditional family values. Doesn't matter how you have your family, but commitment to each other, stability, accountability to each other. That's what we need to change our city, our neighborhood, our nation. But more importantly, if we can't give stability in our day-to-day life, how are we going to change the bigger things?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense and everything. Because, like you said, I was there in the early '80s, and I do remember going to hear different political people that were speaking, whether that was some of the Watergate folks or others there on campus. And I understand the campus has grown tremendously because I've not been back since I graduated in December of '84, and probably am due for a trip back there since it's been 40 plus years since I've been there. But I also understand, as I recall, and I don't know what the situation is now, there was a number of what would be considered safe clubs and everything like that. So you could go to a Park Avenue, which I think was near UWM and stuff like that, and you could go to Papagayos, even though that was in the Latin community, or you could go to the Jazz Gallery, which was actually in the inner city and everything like that, and you could be feeling relatively safe from what I remember. Not that there weren't incidences with the police, and not that there weren't incidences with crime, but it doesn't sound as if it was as bad then as it is now, the way you're describing it and everything like that. Because I remember definitely going to that, and it was almost like a Studio 54 kind of club, and even going to like concerts. And I think Summerfest is one of the longest running festivals, and it's still going on. And that takes place, I want to say, it might even be this month. I want to say it's either in July or August. They're in Wisconsin.
Yeah, Summerfest, I believe, just ended.
Okay.
And, we have a lot of things to be to have pride about. Um, I don't want to confuse people with the other movements, but uh, you know, I have a lot of pride for Milwaukee. I have a lot of pride for my state, for my city, for my town. Um, with every uh, community, there's a plus and a minus.
Right.
I wouldn't have a nonprofit if I didn't see a need to stop certain things happening.
Right.
So there's wonderful nonprofits within Milwaukee to help with the inner city violence and things like that. But Waukesha in itself is growing in homelessness. It's growing in mental instability. But one of the great things is people like myself and other nonprofits that I'm starting to partner with is we're attacking those issues, and we want and need your help. If somebody is on the other side of the world and saying, "Gosh darn it, this guy Matt Stafford is saying Waukesha needs my help. How do we help?" Well, to be honest, donating is really helpful, and uh, I have a donation page up to on my website, and it would be very helpful if I could receive some donations to keep doing the work I'm doing. There's many great nonprofits doing amazing work, but without the proper funding, how are we going to change the family members and the community, in our area?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I know one of the things that people oftentimes talk about on this network in general is the role of leadership. So, what do you think, Matthew, makes a good and effective leader, and what are some of those leadership qualities that you try to bring into your own work?
So I smile about this. And like the point that I said earlier, you're a leader with or without your permission. You're a mentor with or without your permission. And you're also a follower with or without your knowledge. So I'm a follower of individuals, that I actively follow and I know I want to implement, but subconsciously I'm following other people. A great leader has all three of those things together, but in balance. You know, being a leader at the certain moment, being a mentor, being a servant, being a follower at a certain moment. All of those things working in tangent, you know, you know, throughout the day. Within a moment, you could be a leader and then a follower and a mentor. So having that perfect balance, and no one's ever going to have that perfect balance, but to get close to that is what makes a great leader.
That makes a lot of sense. I like that way you put that in terms of what makes an effective and solid leader and all along those lines. If you would, and like I say, we're going to wrap up right now, and I'll play one of our outgoing commercials and all along those lines. But tell folks how they can reach you if there's any message that you didn't get to express on this particular show and everything. And I always get all my guests to give a message of positivity for our global audience. So if you want to give a message of positivity for the global audience, because we do have listeners, and as a matter of fact, I may put you in touch with Sharif, who is in Malaysia, and he does a lot of work in terms of trying to connect people that are doing positive work together, with him doing it out of Malaysia, and even some people out of California and different other parts of the country. So that might be somebody that you can network with, that I will try to put you in touch with, because I know he's trying to build some youth oriented stuff in his country, but also trying to help other people in other parts of the world as well.
I would love to connect with those individuals. Okay, now I'm going to speak to you guys like I'm there in front of you. This may sound weird at the moment, but I believe in it. I care for who you are. For who I am is a representative of my family's character, of my faith in God, and the stability I strive to give in my family and in my outreach. I'm going to tell you one thing. Believe in yourself. There's always going to be a dark moment, but there's always the light at the end of the tunnel. The thing you need is somebody to believe in you. If you don't know how to believe in yourself, you can contact me. My number is 262-720-8961. You can go to my website. You can go to my Facebook, vincentjamesmentoring.org or Vincent James Mentoring at Facebook. I have a page. I have a group. I have a recovery program too that I have and I will be launching. But in all sincerity, I may never meet you in person, but I hope you can tell that I believe in you. And I hope that you can see my father's stability in my workings.
That makes a lot of sense, everything. And before you leave, I want to play this video of a friend sent me some time ago. I think it might have been a year or two ago. But it was talking about the importance of mentoring and coaching, and it's done in a poetic front. But I want to hear your response to what this gentleman sent me about a couple of years ago. And I'll play that, and then hear your response, and then we'll play a commercial about teachers as well. But first, I want to hear your response to this like poetic effort. So check this out.
The difference between thinking and doing and living in the 21st century. They teach us about being a real quarterback-oriented games. We don't have to just use video games and live in the shadows of good things because of them. We grow up with agility far larger and bigger than we are tall. Parents are the champions and have to be our first life coaches and know-it-alls. Who knows how this came to be? Coaches will ask you if you know your right foot from your left, if you know yourself, if you act knowingly good or bad, if you can move and negotiate a field with style and form, if you can tackle or throw a pass, or if your last name is that of a clown. If you can let someone know on the team that you are in trouble before you cause yourself or someone else trouble. If you are ready to learn teamwork or aware that you started out today with your pants down, or your sportsmanship was left on the kitchen table? If you know the social studies, the alphabets, science, music, characters, and the stats and the numbers of a great student player eligible to stay on the team, and if you know the poise of great athletic champions and their scientific attitudes that are historical or music to us now, if you have the swag of the game, the discipline, the performance, and artistic form down pat, and if you have the style of gymnastics that the sport has with life, if you have the work ethic and determination to make it all seem easy and not a game at all, if you have the knowledge of all the above, or you don't know things like this even make the difference, I think that when it comes to the importance of parents and their field and self-knowledge, wisdom, virtues, and courage, their teachings, love, respect, care that they illustrate on the field and in the grind of life with their actions and their ideas, experiences, muscle, and strategic magic and skills wrapped around us with their priceless love. For their verbs to be that make us winners in this hard and fast third century, that without them, kids and adults, athletes could hardly see or do anything at all. Parents teach us the difference between playing video games and playing on the field. Parents teach us how to be champions. A huge hug should go to parents, coaches, and parent-like community people who have love on the field for you and who are champions for your life, both in and out the games.
What was your take on that? That was his idea around the importance of parenting and coach-like figures and everything. So I just wanted your reflections on that and what you thought of that piece.
That's very, very impactful. Now, coaches are extended parents. Right. Mentors are extended parents. A lot of people that utilize video games utilize it in a way for de-stressing or escaping to a different reality. Now, there's issues, there's pluses and minuses with both sides. So if you devote yourself to a game and you forget about all the other responsibilities, if you want to be the best football player on the face of the planet, you have to be laser focused on that. But you need other people's help to take care of other responsibilities then for your life. Now, it's extremely important to be laser focused on something. For me, it's the outreach and my family first. It's God, my family, and then my work life is my outreach. But a mentor, a coach is extremely important. Parents are the first and last line of defense of instability for their children's life. I hope to God my daughter is so strong and has so much more success than I could even dream. But how is she going to get there? I have to put her on the path to success. Yep. Now, what he said in that video is discipline. Discipline gives freedom. Stability, it can, sorry, I'm getting a little tongue-tied. Consistency, discipline is freedom. Yep. You get so much more out of being disciplined. Hey, you get a cheat day every now and then, right?
Right.
So, but if you don't have the discipline, if you don't have the consistency, where is the strength of your character when something hard comes along? That's why it's important to have mentors, counselors, parents, coaches to help give you the tools that you need to move forward.
Yeah, I agree. And the last commercial I'm going to play, and just hear your comments before I play it in this case, because this will be the one that wraps up the show and everything like that. But how important do you think it is to honor our not just teachers, but the support staff? Because this other commercial comes out of Oklahoma. It's a lot shorter and everything, but it's a award this gentleman set up that honors not just the teachers, but also the guidance counselors, the janitors, and the support staff that exist in our school system and all along those lines. So I just wondered how important do you think it is for us to give respect to our teachers and their surrounding support system, including the school counselors?
So I'll talk about Dr. Moore. No, Dr. Champeau. He was my principal at Waukesha North. For some reason, my locker was by the vice principal's office and then by the principal's office. I don't know why. It's not like I put crickets in the air ducts of my school or help bring my friend's car through the gym into the cafeteria, or doing all sorts of shenanigans. Accountability with teachers, appreciating the teachers, guiding counselors, the people that have those type of jobs are looking out for their students' best interest. But as a young adult, as a teenager, and in college, it's hard to juggle. Who am I? Who am I supposed to appreciate? Who am I supposed to give respect to? And how do I give that to myself? It's a balance.
Right.
Yes, you're supposed to give honor, respect, and you're supposed to submit to the rules that are needed, but also know where to push the line if it's not morally correct overall, right?
Yeah.
So what I'm stating is, yes, appreciate, give what's supposed to be given, and learn the guidance that they're trying to give.
I definitely agree with you on that and everything along those lines. So I'm going to play this little short commercial, maybe one other one as well, and everything. It's actually about financial support and everything like that, and they're from the local area as well. But the first one is actually, I believe, out of Oklahoma and everything like that. But hopefully we'll get you back to learn more about the center. But I hope folks have got some great information and will be giving you the support that you need in your mentoring facility. And I'm glad to be able to have you on this edition of the Online Dinner Party. But right now we'll go out with this particular 2 commercials, and then I might talk to you after I hit the end button and all along those lines. But definitely this has been a fun conversation, and hopefully we can get you back on other shows as well.
That would be great.
No problem.
Are you looking for money-saving strategies for your business and personal finances? Are you tired of working hard every day with little or nothing to show for it? Contact Prosperity Financial Services, LLC right now for your free financial consultation. Call now to reserve yours today, 804-349-8600, 804-349-8600.
I want to thank everyone coming to the 2020 TAF Awards. This was a show like no other, people. This is the Grammys for dignitaries, educators, and support staff around the state of Oklahoma and worldwide. We cannot do this without the support of the people. So we thank you, I thank you, for being such a dedicated supporter to this movement for the Teachers Appreciation Foundation. I thank you.